If you're thinking about getting into model railroading or you're already an addict, boy, do we have a project for you. In this episode, the track smacks back. I'll tell you what that means right now. Hey rail fans, welcome to It's My Railroad, the how-to show for regular people. Hey, on this show we are having a blast tearing down my logging camp and rebuilding it up the regular guy way. We have got plenty of community involvement, discussions, love hanging out with you guys. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. All right, so today we are finally gonna put that track down into the logging camp like we've been promising. We're gonna cut it, we're gonna paint it, we're gonna glue it in, and not actually run a train on it. Sorry, I think that'll be next week. Let's find out later. Anyway, but as part of that, you heard me say at the beginning that the track smacks back, and you're gonna have to see what that means in the episode. But just keep in mind, things don't always go right when you're doing it the regular guy way. So you'll see what that means. But make sure you come back to the studio with me at the end of the episode, because I made an important discovery yesterday that's totally cool, and I just want to share that with you guys when that happens, okay? So other than that, why don't we just head on into the hobby room right now. All right, so I think what we should do is lay this piece of track up in here first, mostly because it's just one piece of track. We can put it in, good to go. Up here, we're gonna have to cut in the turnout and all that. Not gonna be too difficult, but I like to start with something easy sometimes if I can. So on this piece of Pico track, I know that I need to get those rail joiners on, and they won't fit right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut off the last of the railroad ties, and then just go ahead and slide the track into the rail joiner that's already sitting there on the turnout from when we originally installed that. And it seems like it's all the way in. Now we take some T-pins. I'm gonna get this straight first of all, because I want to keep it straight. So we'll put one there, and we'll put one here, and we're gonna put one here. Well, wherever it'll fit actually. Okay, not as easy as I had planned, people. Well, that sucks. We'll put it right here. Yeah, for now. And then let's see what happens when we bend this. Yeah, then we want to put one here along the bend. See that, how it's bending along there? And this rail is getting too short, so we'll push it back in as we go. And we'll fine tune that in a second. Just keep laying these pins in here. Again, I'm making this up. This is just how I'm doing it right now. It's maybe not perfect, but it's what we have. It's what we have to work with. And right there. So that's kind of where we're going with that. Now we'll get our needle nose pliers maybe and pull that rail up just a little bit. Okay, I can't for the life of me find my my little needle nose pliers. So I'm going to just take these dikes real quick, because they will grab it as long as they don't screw up the track. And just there. So I'm thinking, come the end of the day, that this is just about the length this piece is going to be. So I'll take my little handy nippers here, and I will cut it right at the very end. I can cut it shorter later if I want to. But for now, let's have more track than we need, so that we get things going here. There you go. Boom, look at that. It's not laid yet, but it's in place. At some point, when we come back through here, we're going to put this over here, super glue it down all the way, and that track will be sitting up on top like that. Veritable thing of beauty. Very proud of it. I'm going to write my congressman. So now let's get from here up to where the first turnout goes, or the second turnout goes. This turnout goes right here. Now I kind of got to back it up, make sure it lines up with the wooden rails before we get too excited. But that's where I want that turnout to go. Okay. Okay, so I already cut the railroad ties off the turnout and put two rail joiners on there, so we can sort of get this lined up where we want it. And then what I like to do to hold a turnout in place is, to the best of my ability, drive 6 T-pins down in there, because we need to hold it at this end. It's pretty tight because all the logs down there, and we'll hold it at the other end as well. All right, so I'd say that turnout's held in place pretty good. Now I want to go ahead and piece in that piece of track between the 2 turnouts. Bring it in. I got it in, took a little extra doing, but it's straight to where it goes, which means this turnout should go right on here. And we can go ahead and make sure that the edges are good on that. And then, as we had before, we'll go ahead and just put that turnout back down with some pins, hold it in place. So I got another piece of track here. Look how far we've come already. We've got this piece of track in, we got this piece of track in, got our turnout in. So let's move over here and get our last 2 links in. Maybe we can get this stuff glued down tonight. I'm going to pull all this track off. I'm going to go through and paint it and treat it. We did this in a previous episode. If you look down in the description, you're going to see a link to that episode. So I'm not going to bore you with that again. But I'm going to use the same principle I used before. All right, so I got the track painted and pretty much ready to lay down in the logging camp. Basically what happens is I started with a coat of black, then I put like a gray wash on it, and then I added some brown. And that kind of gives it, for me anyway, it gives it that sort of weathered kind of look. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for like 3 months, right? We're actually going to install this track today. And then, hey, I can fake logging operations after that. Won't that be fun? We're going to super glue it right down because caulking, you're going to see the caulking. That's not going to work so great. And white glue is just not going to do it. Anyway, I'm going to set up the soldering iron, get the super glue out, and then see what we can do and the rest of the time we have together to make this happen. One other quick thing to point out is where I have these 2 rail joiners right here. I have them pulled up a little bit, and here's the deal with an Insul frog turnout. If these rail joiners sit back too far, and or when I solder, a little piece of solder gets in there, it will actually solder in a short circuit right there. So keep that in mind. We just keep those pulled a little forward so they don't touch back in there. So here's what I'm going to do. We're just going to fly right into this, all right? Like I said, I want to solder this before I do anything because I want it to be straight. So let's just slide it into the rail joiner. For starters, get our needle nose pliers. Oh, by the way, I found my needle nose pliers, people. So there you go. All right, so we got that first piece on, and here's what I'm doing. I'm going to line that rail so that it comes straight in off that other one. All right. Then I know once I solder that, I know I've got the exact joint exactly the way we want it. Now we got a couple different things we can do here. I can go ahead and start super gluing this track down, and or go ahead and put this piece on, because as we see, if we bend that over there and get it on straight, it's going to make the track the way the track's going to be no matter what, right? Perfect curvature of the track. Then the rest of it's just lining it up. So I think, in my humble, that is what we should do, is go ahead and solder that on. Not only that, it's going to be easier to solder it on way over here. So just put my rail joiners on. I got two new rail joiners on here because the other ones had paint on them, and that didn't work for me. So I will slide the long rail on first, try to get it where we want it, something like that. I'm gonna hold this down here so it stays flat, so I don't just go ahead and solder in some kind of a dip right there. Actually, it's forming a dip. We need more weight. All right, so between a pen, a Duracell battery, and all-purpose machine oil, I am seeming to hold this in a relatively flat position. You know, this isn't working for me. We're gonna glue this track down as we go because it's a little warped, and I'm gonna solder it in warped. All right, so let's abandon this idea. Switching to the super glue. We know we want to keep this straight coming out of here, right? So here's my proposition. I will force some super glue every now and then between the track and the little wood thinger we got there. Nah, I put too much on right there. We'll just let that sit there for a second. Probably even pin it in place is the hot ticket right now. All right, well, here's the thing about super glue. You put a little on in the right environment, that stuff sets up right now. You put too much on in the wrong environment, it takes a while to set up. So I think, though, that that's going to hold. And so what we'll do is just keep working that track around to where we want it just by gluing it down. Okay, well, boy, are we having some fun laying this track right now. Again, I think I understand why I haven't seen too many examples of this being done. This is not easy. Remember those shows where they used to go, hey kids, don't try this at home? My advice to you. Anyway, here's some problems I'm running into. To get the super glue in and under there, it's hard to put just a little bit. So I end up with a little too much. And super glue, contrary to popular opinion, does not set up instantly when you get too much of it. You gotta like hold things in place for a while. So I got this big rock right here that I got out of my backyard, kind of holding it down. Something else in torquing and tweaking this around kind of blew out some of the railroad ties off the track. By the way, the track that's already soldered at the other end. So we're having a good time over here laying this track for you guys. So what I've done, I went ahead though and I soldered on the remaining turnout. I'm going to spend some time applying glue, setting rocks, applying glue, setting rocks, using pretty much this same technique that I know of. And I'm going to go ahead and lay the rest of this track. Okay, that was fun. So what you're telling me then is I can glue down some cork and glue down some track and kind of be done with it. Well, what was I thinking? This was not easy to do. I gotta tell you, not exactly entirely flat. Super glue doesn't like to stick right away. Some of the railroad ties wanted to pop off the rails. It was kind of difficult to do, but I pulled it off, I think. But let's take the close-up cam here and let's move in and take a look at some of the details I added along the way and kind of the reasons why I added them. Let's move over here. All right, so we can kind of go way back here at the very beginning, and you can see like right here, I added some unpainted wood about the size of a railroad tie. Here's the story. They have railroad ties, they have new railroad ties, but when they run out of new railroad ties, they got to kind of just make something out of some trees. So that's what they've done here and here and some other places along the route. Moving forward just a little bit more, in some of the cases where the underlying log didn't quite line up to where it looked good, what I did is I shoved another log under there and then put these posts down that act as like a little retaining wall to hold that log up there. Again, my idea for this is that it's sort of slipping and sliding around. It freezes, it snows, it rains, it's muddy. Just a temporary environment that doesn't work as well as maybe some mainline environment would. And then we just sort of slide up here a little bit more. Right here, these railroad ties right along here were not actually sitting down on the rail logs. Now, the thing is, I could have just pushed it down really hard if I wanted to and kind of warp the rail, but that close to a turnout, I wasn't so convinced that that wouldn't cause some kind of problems. So what I did instead, and it's maybe hard to see, is I ran these shims up under here. See these shims? And again, this is maintenance that was recently done on the track by the logging crew because it was sagging right here, because these logs here are sinking into Mother Earth. So I had to fix that. Moving back just a little bit into here, very hard to see, but right here, you see these two ties are black. These on either side are not. Those are black ties. Those are the ties that they had in stock, basically, to replace ties that rotted out or blew out or whatever. So that's why here and there I've got some just black ones. As we move forward a little bit more, you can see some of the other things that were done. You see those ties lying there that I put in. Back along the logging camp side, you see again I've got a place where one of the logs dislodged, so I had to put a little piece in there. They didn't need posts to brace that one. They figured they could just nail it down. Moving back along here, we had one here and one here. Again, areas where the logs are sort of moving around. They shouldn't be. Everyone's unhappy about it. There's probably going to be a lawsuit involved, but hey, that's not our concern, right? So then we just move forward, get a kind of a look at how all of this sort of came out. So kind of in conclusion, sort of wrap this up a little bit. I really like the way this is coming out. I like the color of the ties that are kind of weathered. I like the fact that there's some black ties, not the kind you wear to a fancy dinner, by the way. Some black ties in there that kind of look like newer ties, and then the hewn ties they just made out of something they had around there, because you've got to keep these trains rolling or Mr. S.L. Brown of S.L. Brown Lumber will get ticked off because he's losing money. We are just a short distance away from being done as you can be with the logging camp. So let's head back into the studio. And we're back in the studio. Wow, that was riveting, wasn't it? I told you, things don't always go right. That little segment was about 19 minutes long, something like that. But in reality, it took hours to glue all that track down and make it stay with rocks on it and everything. Not an easy thing to do, but we managed to get through it. So about that important discovery I made last night, Vinny has invited me to come by and see his live stream from his workbench that he does on Friday nights. And it's been tough for me because of the time and when I get off work and stuff. But I managed to get over there for the second half of yesterday's live event. And I got to tell you, first of all, shout out to you, Vinny, for putting something like that out once a week. It's pretty cool. Second of all, it's kind of fun. It's kind of neat to hang out with the community at an event like that. There's all the chat going on and some familiar faces, or familiar names anyway, from the It's My Railroad community as well. Great model railroad community. And we're all over the place. It's kind of neat to get together with this one common interest and hang out and share stories and be friendly and stuff. So hey, hats off to you, Vinny, for putting that together, and I appreciate the invite. All right, as we kind of wrap this thing up a little bit, again, if you haven't done it already, consider subscribing. We put out content like this all the time, and it's a lot of fun. If you liked this video, do me a favor, squash that like button. It really helps us out a lot, and it really encourages us that you guys are digging the content we're putting out. And then, of course, if there's anybody you know that can use this information, just feel free to share the video with them. It'll be a really good time. And all of you guys that are putting the comments down there, I thank you for doing that. It's really nice hanging out with you guys down there, and I invite the rest of you to feel free to just leave some comments. Let's talk about stuff. It's a great time, I promise. Now let me ask you this question. If you haven't started building your model railroad yet, what are you waiting for? An honest politician? All right, that ought to do. Hey, thanks again for watching. My name is Steve Brown, and I will see you next time. In this episode, the tack attracts back. That's hard to say. Fee fi fo fum, fee fi fo fum. In this episode, the tack attracts back. I can't get this right.